Tonight, News Channel 5 Investigates digs deeper into the backgrounds of two men who are part of an effort to build a far-right Christian nationalist community right here in Middle Tennessee. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Rory Johnston. Among their views, we've now discovered they want to make Jews second-class citizens, and they recently promoted a controversial figure who denies the Holocaust. All of this happening about 90 minutes east of Nashville in Jackson County. Already, the developers behind this effort have staked out a 100-acre plot of land near Gainesboro that they say they're ready to sell to people who think like they think. This is a great view here from Sky 5. We first told you about this project back in November. Since then, they've also bought up this area known as Brewington Farm, spending a whopping $2.5 million to buy another 400 acres. There, they plan to plant a church headed by a Christian nationalist pastor with some highly controversial views. And that is where our chief investigative reporter, Phil Williams, continues this important investigation. Phil.
Rory, last fall, we told you about the two podcasters at the forefront of the Christian nationalist effort in Jackson County, including that pastor who wants to cancel the civil rights movement. They also want to take away women's rights to vote. And as we've now discovered, they're also keeping company with people and espousing views that critics call anti-Semitic.
Well, hello and welcome to Contramundum. I'm Andrew Isker, and this is CJ Engel.
Pastor Andrew Isker and his sidekick, CJ Engel, are attempting to build a right-wing podcasting business, now operating out of this office space owned by developers trying to build a Christian nationalist community here in tiny Gainesboro, Tennessee.
Today, we will be talking about one of the great American heroes of the 20th century, Charles Lindbergh.
Here in a recent show, they discussed the work of famed aviator Charles Lindbergh, who opposed U.S. entry into Europe's war against Adolf Hitler. Lindbergh faced a public backlash after he blamed Jews and what he saw as Jewish-controlled media for pushing the nation into war.
We tried to provide a convenient venue for views that are excluded, important, controversial views that are excluded from the mainstream media.
Their guest defending Lindbergh, American technology entrepreneur Ron Unz, runs a controversial website that publishes often vile white supremacist and anti-Semitic screeds, including articles mocking the murder of millions of Jews at the hands of the Nazis. One article argues that the Holocaust narrative must be turned on its head. Instead of the world apologizing to Jews for not having done enough to prevent the evils of Nazism, Jews need to apologize to the world.
Ron Unz is an idea man, and unfortunately, the vast majority of his ideas are anti-Semitic.
R.E.A. Tuckman, director of the ADL Center on Extremism, has been tracking Ron Unz's work for years. The so-called Unz Review routinely republishes pieces from neo-Nazi and white supremacist websites.
This conversation probably has piqued a lot of interest for a lot of people, and they probably want to read all of American Pravda, which, how many hundreds of thousands of words?
It's a lot.
Entire series. Yeah.
In fact, in the series of essays that he calls American Pravda, Unz pushes debunked claims like per capita Jews were the greatest mass murderers of the 20th century, that, quote, religious Jews apparently pray to Satan almost as readily as they pray to God. He even endorses the notorious Christian superstition that Jews once kidnapped small Christian children in order to drain their blood for use in various magic rituals.
But essentially, they are promoting him as a source of truth, as a trusted source of opinion about historical issues. And this is the person who has denied the Holocaust and has cast the history of the world as one in which Jewish people are the villains.
In a statement, the podcaster said, from time to time, we have guests on our podcasts that we think will be interesting to our audience. We don't share all their views on every topic. And what does it say that they would give him a platform?
So I believe it says quite a bit about the willingness of these people to essentially raise up an anti-Semite and essentially create an on-ramp for their viewers to engage further with Mr. Unz and his ideas.
Up until England started World War II, Hitler, all he wanted to do was be at peace with England.
But for Isker and Engel, it's nothing new. Here they hosted a guest who views Adolf Hitler as a victim of World War II. Their guest had also predicted that America will, quote, start to fail completely, and it will be caused by many Jews who will then get forced out of the land they just destroyed.
The war on white America is a war on heritage America.
Engel himself has argued that, quote, the Jews as a collective have largely operated at odds with the old American way of life. He was also involved in starting up an audiobook company that offered recordings of books by a New Zealand white supremacist and Holocaust denier, as well as the memoir of a Belgian Nazi collaborator. Engel says it was part of a broader interest in historical content.
It's an alliance between Christians and Nazis that I did not expect to find.
Yeah, and again, unfortunately, whether it's in Nazi Germany, whether it's in 1930s Boston, we have seen this alliance before.
Dr. Bradley Onishi is a religious scholar and author of Preparing for War, The Extremist History of White Christian Nationalism and What Comes Next. And he's taken a look at Isker and Engel's work as part of a new book he's now writing.
And they're brash, they're audacious, and because of that, they're making a big splash.
Right, we have to be wary of them.
In a recent podcast series with far-right pastor Joel Webben, Isker argues that Jews who rejected Christ have no right to claim to be Jews.
Jews, in the biblical sense, right, they do not exist today anymore. Right? It's only Christians and non-Christians.
And the people who now call themselves Jews, they say, are responsible for many of the evils of the world.
Some groups do worse stuff than other groups.
Yes.
It's a fact.
And they argue that Jews should not be treated as full-fledged Americans.
To use the phrase Judeo-Christian, you might as well put a coexist bumper sticker on your car.
That's right.
Right? No, right. This country belongs to Jesus.
Right.
Right.
Unfortunately, we've seen this theology in the past in this country, and it's KKK theology.
Onishi says that's an attitude that helped fuel anti-Semitism and violence against Jewish people in the last century and in more recent times.
So when I hear Engel and Isker talking about there are no more Jews and there are no more need for the Jews and Jesus was the last one, I unfortunately hear the echoes of that theology, not only in Christian history, but also in American history.
Now, they will say, you know, we do not believe in treating them badly. They just don't deserve a seat at the table in America.
No, it's Christ's kingdoms, right? The kingdoms of this world becoming the kingdoms of our Lord Jesus
Christian
Christ.
nationalism, not Judeo-Christian nationalism.
No.
It's hard to say in one breath that we don't want to treat somebody badly, and then in the other breath to say, but you don't deserve a seat at the table. If I'm setting the table for Christmas dinner and I say to everyone, I don't want to treat anyone here poorly, but you and this group are going to sit with me at the table and we're going to enjoy our dinner. And you and that group are going to go sit on the floor and unfortunately not be able to participate. I think that would be considered treating one of those groups pretty badly.
It appears that we are at a moment where it is increasingly socially acceptable to question the right of Jewish people to be full participants in American society.
And Tugman says what these people are trying to do here in Gainesboro should be a wake-up call for the rest of America.
To the extent that they are doing that they are marginalizing, that they are demonizing American Jews, is something that we all as a society need to be on the lookout for and push back against.
In a written statement, Isker and Engel emphatically denied any accusations of anti-Semitism on their part, claiming that Pastor Isker's views about Jews follow, quote, historical Protestant theological tradition, a claim that a lot of Protestants would dispute. You can see their full statement at newschannel5.com.
This small town, Gainesboro, I know you spent some time there. Quiet little town, barely 1,000 people, I think, population. But you found some community members are pushing back, right?
Yeah, we recently went back and take a look at this. Outside one popular downtown restaurant, we found this sign. It reads, "We already have a beautiful town. We don't need you to build us a new one." Obviously, no mistaking the message there. The problem is they're obviously up against people with a lot of money, $2.5 million we saw, and that's why we plan to return to Gainesboro here in the coming weeks to see how the people are reacting to what's happening in their community.
They need to know. We all need to know. Bill, we'll keep following it. Thank you.